Hi, my name is Adriel William, and today I'm going to talk about a question which is usually asked in a lot of interviews, specifically in dental school programs, in medical residencies. And the question they usually ask, and I personally believe is very important, is have you ever dealt with stress and how do you manage it? The reason usually they ask you about this question, and I can vouch for the dental school programs myself, and I believe medical programs are much more difficult and hectic, is that they want to know if we get you in the program, if we select you as a candidate, will you be a good fit for the program? Will you be able to survive all the workload and the intense routine? Because what happens is that you might seem to be a really good, outstanding applicant, but you might not be good with dealing stress, and that happens all the time, especially with people who are really good with their education and credentials. When you migrate, you leave your family, you have emotional, psychological issues. When you're living in a different atmosphere at a different altitude with a different atmospheric pressure, trust me, a lot of stress come out of people. And that's one of the reasons they want to ask you if we invest on you and if we select you as a candidate and we give you admission, and if you come here and after 2 months you're overburdened with your stress and you might drop yourself out of the school. Because one of the things with professional schools in United States, whether it's law school, engineering school, dental school, medical school, is that the first semesters are usually very rigorous. They make it comparatively very tough because they want to see if anybody wants to drop out, should drop out early and in the first semester, so they wouldn't end up wasting a lot of their resources on somebody who wouldn't last through the whole program. If you look at a lot of the data, a lot of the people who drop out of schools usually drop out in the first semester, and that's how it is designed. But coming to the question, they want to know whether you will be able to manage all the stress from the school, the academic stress, the cultural stress, the migrations, the issues of dealing with people, dealing with patients, and a lot of other factors. And now I'm going to talk about how you should go about this question. And I believe this is a very good question because this is the point where you can make a strong impact, because I would say this is a question which lies on the boundaries or is a crossing line between your professional and personal life. Let me explain you how. Because when they are asking about stress, you can go either way. You can go towards your academic life, your professional life, or you could even go towards your personal life. Because when stress comes into one of them, it affects both of them. If you have stress going on in your personal life, it will affect your professional life as well. And in the same manner, I think it goes vice versa. So when they ask you this question, my journal advice to a lot of candidates, and which I use myself, is think of a time which really gave you a high stress. As long as it was a situation that is expressible, that can be told in an interview, I would say utilize it. Why I'm saying it? I've talked to candidates who had issues of domestic violence, who had their parents died, who had their family suffer from cancer, who had robberies at their home, who suffered accidents. And they asked me, is it a good thing? Would it be wise enough to quote these kind of personal problem during your interviews? And I usually suggest, my personal suggestion from my own example is that this is the best time to tell them who you are and what you're made of. Let me explain from my personal example. And from my personal example, during the interview at UCLA and University of Colorado, they asked me, have you ever dealt with stress and how do you manage it? And I gave them a personal example when I told them in 2013 I lost my father in a road traffic accident. And after that, the paradigm of my life and of my family was changed, and series of events, including psychological, financial, and emotional stressful events happened, and because of that, there were things that had to be dealt with. But during those time, I did what I was supposed to do, and I pulled up my socks and I tried to be the most responsible person at my father's funeral as much as I could have done. And that has helped me to be successful in my academics, and I got into my residency. After that, I passed my exams, I got to US, did my master's, and now I'm sitting right in front of you. So the reason I'm sharing this story and how I narrate it is that you should understand whenever they ask you about your stress, yes, bringing something from your personal life, some personal trauma, some personal past story that really changed the spectrum of your life is a good thing, but never make it a therapy session. One of the things that I try to discuss with a lot of candidates is that make sure when you give your answers about your weakness or about the stress, do not make it a therapy session. Tell them about a time when you got shook because of a problem. Yes, but right after that, tell them that you took on the responsibility and you used it to make the best out of yourself. Because in reality, nobody likes victim mentality. If you tell them that you went through a hard situation and you had to go through some stressful moments, it could be some personal relational issues, some trauma, some accident, and it changed your life, but you got out of it as a much better human being. So this is something you need to remember. If you have 5 minutes to answer this question, use less than a minute to tell the problem and use the rest to tell what you learn out of it. Don't go into detail of keep on telling the details of the problem. You can, but to only a certain aspect. After that, you have to tell them a lesson, a moral, how it created you to be a better human being and how it will help you in future to be a more productive person when you get into the school. Because that's what you're selling. And I say this again, that interviews are not a charity, it's a negotiation. You're actually selling yourself on the table. And I'm not saying it in a negative manner. It is a negotiation. You're going to get into a school, you're going to get a medical or a dental license. So you're negotiating, and in order to negotiate, you need to have some leverage, and the leverage belongs to your personality, that you're showing that you're a person who can manage stress and who can come out of that stress as a far better human being. And one other aspect of why they ask you is even when you go into the profession, you're going to deal with a lot of issues. For example, you can get into some ethical issues. You can get into, you can deal with a patient who's apprehensive. You might be working in a corporate sector where your office manager is pushing you to sell a gold crown when you don't want to, and the patient don't need to buy it. And these kind of situations could happen. So they want to make sure you're somebody who can manage stressful situations. And my usual take on this is look deep into your life and think about the traumas or any situation. Even if you don't have traumas, yes, you can always go for a situation when you failed a national board exam or some academics. But I would say think about your personal life and then write it in a way that it can be told in a professional manner, because not everything that happens into your personal life can be told into a professional platform. But you can do it if you know how to write those words and how to express those words. But if you do that, people like honesty. If you share something which is honest about you and you're being open about it, they will prefer you rather somebody who's faking about his failure in his biology exams during his high school. That's not very deep enough to impress anybody. So just to summarize what I just said about the question is that remember, whenever they ask you about a question when you dealt with stress, never utilize it as a therapy session. It's an interview, so you have to tell them something brief about a time when you dealt with stress. But the main focus should be that I am mature enough, intelligent enough to know that life comes with tragedy, but I'm brave enough to know that I have to do the things that I'm supposed to do, and I won't act as a victim. So when you utilize this kind of narrative, when you tell them that I don't believe in a victimhood, I would rather believe in something which strives for bravery and which strives for honesty, they would rather prefer you. Because from my personal experience, fortune always favors the brave. And I know the world is tough and life is never fair, but people who try to stand out and try their best to do whatever is positive enough in the given situation, fortune does favors them. Along with that, one other aspect during the interview is that they will also ask, how do you practically deal with stress? So people talk about this all the time, that they do meditation, they do yoga, some people say music, they play guitar, they like to hang out with friends. Those are some good answers. My suggestion is look for things that are unique to you. Somebody said that they like cooking because the aroma of the spices actually helps them relieve their brain or their stress. And when they asked me personally, I said I have a group of people that I like to talk to. And along with that, when I have problem, I try to go out and meet somebody who has bigger issues than me. And that's when I realized that there are people who are suffering with far more greater problems than I am. And it actually gives me the courage to stand out in my problems and deal with them head on. And these are some of the narratives. So you have to find a narrative during your answers. You have to find a story during your answer. And my suggestions are, write your answers down, think about them. When I talk to candidates about their interview sessions, that's what I do. I sit down with them and I ask them, what do you think about this answer? And then I try to rephrase it in a more professional way that is audible to the culture of the American society. Because sometimes we say something which is from our culture back in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or Middle East, but it might not be audible or understandable by the American culture. And just to give you an example of the culture difference and how they are perceived in different manner, I will give you an example of a book that I read a couple of years ago. It's called 3D Gospel. It talks about how different part of the world have different cultures. And if you look at countries like Japan, Pakistan, India, Middle Eastern countries, you will see that they are much more based over a concept of shame and honor. The example is, if I do something bad, I will not only bring a bad name to myself or to my family or my tribe, I will bring a bad name to my whole country maybe, because we are oriented as a community in a much more shame and honor kind of dynamic. On the other hand, in the West, if you do something, you're the one who's going to pay for it, because you're only questionable for your own self. And this is based on a rational guilt and innocence concept. And I personally believe no one single culture is right, but when you get to see and understand all of them, then you can extract the best out of them. And these are the reason I'm sharing this, is that I hope it helps you create a better detailed narrative and a perception about yourself, your answers, and it helps you in your goals in wherever you're headed. And I presume that I will see you in a more meaningful video, and I wish you all the best. Take care.